Welcome to Pax Europiana. This week I will talk more about Germany because Germany is very annoying for me. We have this Chancellor Scholz and a very incompetent Minister of Energy, and we have, of course, Mr. Lindner, who I think should resign. In the short version, it's a real very bad managed government. And I said already on my podcast, you might remember, in September 2021, when they were elected, that only Mr. Putin can be happy with that government. It is a disaster, and we have now all these crises. I will talk one by one. In Ukraine, we have almost no German weapons today, and the Prime Minister of Ukraine has come to Germany now and to Brussels, and he asked for more weapons from the Germans, and he asked for tanks. And imagine how this southern offensive could be very successful, even much more successful, with 2,000 German tanks, which are presently active and available in this beautiful country of Germany. Hello, Germany. And they have rejected these 2,000 tanks. They are standing there, they could be produced, We are now half a year in the war. We should be already an arsenal of democracy. Germany is not the arsenal of democracy for Ukraine. Germany is a very big disappointment. It's an absolute disaster. There is no weapons for Ukraine, and that's a big problem, and it should be. 2,000 missing tanks. Blame Mr. Scholz, who is personally opposing the German industry to deliver and the existing tanks to be delivered to Ukraine. That's the first absolute disaster. And the second one is, of course, the continuation of gas imports in the European Union, and Germany, the active country, to continue to appease Russia by buying gas. We should encourage Ukraine to stop it. Putin has more or less stopped Nord Stream 1 completely, very good, but Ukraine is very much afraid to be somehow responsible for the cutting off completely of all gas. And that would be much better if Europe takes the responsibility and not lets Ukraine in this very complicated situation. So Europe, ban gas. Germany, ban gas. We don't need this gas. We can do absolutely without it. We can rely on our own domestic energy resources. Point number 3. Germany is taking all the nuclear power now off the grid. In the biggest energy crisis we have since the 1970s. And that's totally crazy. Germany has 3 power plants, nuclear power plants on the net. And we take these European power plants up, and Hungary puts Russian power plants on. I mean, that's totally crazy. And the other thing is to tax new companies with these profits higher. This is also totally crazy, because now we have subsidized them for years in order to have new renewable energy, solar and wind and water to be produced. And now in the crisis, when they are very profitable, yes, the only thing we can do is to tax them. No, they should invest. Allow them to invest more. There's many opportunities in Ukraine, in the Balkans, especially in the Balkans, in the solar energy. Allow the companies to invest in the Balkans. It's completely crazy. Taxing them and then decreasing the energy potential is absolutely wrong. There should be more generation in Europe, in nuclear, in water, in wind, in solar, and of course also in coal. Coal is not the enemy. The enemy is Putin. Our energy is driven by ideological hate against nuclear and ideological hate against coal. Obviously, nuclear must be done in the EU under EU nuclear security, and coal must be burned under European environmental standards. And everything must be done under our standards, because that's the law. And so we can do nuclear in Europe, as we anyhow do it in so many countries. So if we don't have standards that are good enough for France or for other countries who have nuclear power, especially France has the most of it, so then why we should do it anywhere? So if we can do it in France, we can do it anywhere. And the same for coal. Coal is not the enemy. We do since thousands of years coal and power plants, and whatever since intensively since 250 years. But to break it, end it now, 5 years later, doesn't save or change the world climate. And the world climate will be much better off if we don't burn any Russian energy anymore, because that's really extradited or whatever mines, very, very under hard and difficult and environmental damaging circumstances, because the Russians have a different set of energy regulation and of environmental regulation, maybe none of them, I guess. Yeah? And we will all pay once Putin will fall and lose, and he will. We will all pay for the cleanup of Siberia, which were supposedly cheap energy, and then we have to clean up the whole of Russia later, once they will be in this kind of breakup situation, which they ultimately will be. So that's the situation. And I don't know what is going on with Germany. I know it, of course. They are very left-wing, they love Russia, they are pro-Putinists, yeah, and they don't want to somehow, this anti-American reflexes they have, they hate NATO, and this is all these left-wing extremists which are now in power, and via the SPD. The Greens are much more regional, and I'm calling for a government alternative like I always was with Jamaica, with Merz as the Chancellor, and with Lindner should be replaced, because he is tainted now with all his ample love and all his kind of love for this coalition. He should be replaced immediately, and then there should be a real liberal leader, and then a change of coalition. The Greens, they will be also in the new coalition, because their foreign policy, the Ukraine policy and everything but Habeck is very good. Yeah? Habeck is also not a disaster. He could also learn within a better government, but how he is now behaving, and this kind of ideological things he's doing, that's only the problem. I have nothing against Mr. Habeck. He is not the problem. Mr. Lindner is the problem, and of course Mr. Scholz. He is so close to Schröder, he is so close to Putin. He has made this war possible by distancing himself from Ukraine in February, by going to Ukraine and to Russia and saying no to NATO membership. This is the principal unforgivable sin, because if we would have gone to Moscow in February and said no, you will not attack, we will defend Ukraine, and then there would have been no war. But he went there and he has distanced himself, and that's the ultimate sin. Because why? Again, I explain it very clearly that this country must, Ukraine must be in NATO. It's the only way to make peace. I will have a longer discussions about this one. The only way for peace in Europe is Ukraine securely in NATO, and of course in the EU and in the Euro and in the Regional Cooperation Council. But that's the only way we can have sustainable long-term peace. We can have maybe a short-term submission or some kind of peace of defeat. Yeah, yes, that's always possible. But who wants that? Yeah, we can obviously have also maybe a short-term armistice. But long-term, it will only be possible by a clear security for Ukraine, and that must be inside of NATO. That's the only alliance that exists, and I think I'm 100% logic in that way. Germany is in the way, and that must be, of course, the German government is the main problem here. America and the new German government have to invite Ukraine into NATO, and then there will be peace. Yeah, Germany has to change this one-year experiment of the left-wing traffic light coalition, that what Ampel means, has been proven as a complete disaster for Germany, Europe and for Ukraine, and has led into this war, and it must be ended. This experiment has failed. It should have never been, and we need a more rational and better government in Germany. Thanks a lot for that. More to come from Pax Europiana. Bye.